Hello, Thomas YouTubers. Hey, I got this Talking Action James up here on the workbench today because it's barely running. I mean, it's just creeping around the track. Barely could climb the little incline that I have on my track of the Talking Action station. It couldn't climb that little station. It would just really hesitate. So what we're going to do, we're going to tear it apart. I got some suspicions that it's probably going to be the gear on the motor slipping, and we're going to take a look at it. So let's take this apart. To decrease some weight so I don't tear up anything, I'm just going to go ahead and take the batteries out of this. When messing with Talking Action locos, when you handle them, see how I'm handling it like this? I'm turning everything together because these couplers, the Talking Action couplers, are very fragile and they break. And I try to keep everything together as one. And also the wires are very fragile too. You don't want to twist this part, manipulating this part, and forget about this part, and you'll rip the wires off. They're just old and delicate wires also. Alright, so now we got that done. We're going to move up into the loco and take it apart. They just sit. Okay, there they are. It's free, but they just get hung up inside. Alright, so now disassembling further down is we just take these weights off. Notice that I'm rotating these together because these wires are very... Let me tighten up a little bit so you can see this. Okay, right here, these are the wires that connect to the... right here. I was looking at it, not the camera. These are the wires that connect to the battery, and those will pop off right there because there's only like 3 or 4 strands, and they're old and brittle. So when you turn it together. All right, let's pull it back out. Okay, so we got the shell off, and we got 2 more screws to take off, and these 2 right here. Sometimes if you try to take it off, you can't get it off. It's just not coming off. That's because it's getting hooked up right here. There's a hook for the activation portion of it, and you got to squeeze that down, and then it'll lift right off. Okay, now we got 2 pieces. We got the frame right here with the one axle gear right there. Got to check the axle gears too because they go bad. We'll just set that off right now, off this side. We got the speaker, the activation. Let me tighten up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about right here. Okay, we got the speaker. All right, and then the activation portion of it right there. There's one little tiny spring sitting right there that activate that up and down. All right, let's move these screws out of the way. All right, we'll move the speaker out of the way. Now, if you ever get missing a part and I can't find where'd that part go, a lot of them will be sticking right here on the back side of your speaker. Now, you want to make sure when you put that speaker back in, make sure those parts aren't sitting there, because if you try to tighten it down, you'll crack it. So put that off to the side. I'm gonna back up the screen just a little bit. All right, so now we got this out of the way. Okay. And we got 3 screws to take off right here. Now we're going to take it apart. Okay, this is a clamshell piece. This is divided right down the middle right here. It's clamshell. It's all clammed in there together. Let's take it apart by pulling it right here. Okay. Okay, let's look at the activation. Let's get a little tighter here. All right, we saw the axle that activates it's sitting right here. It fell out already. The one little piece you'd never want to lose is sitting right, where's my tweezers? Here. I'm going to go and reach in there and grab it with my... You don't want to lose that little guy. He popped off way over there because he wants to get gone. That little spring. That's what makes this bounce up and down. All right. So we'll take it off, run it around, and what we got here... This is the activation arm right here. It goes inside this housing piece right here. All right, so what we got the drive gear, which I think is the problem. And then we got the worm gear. The drive gear attaches to this yellowish gear right here. Hang on just a second. Drive gear attaches to the, I don't know if this thing's focused or not. Attaches there, and it just transmits right on down. So that's it taken apart. Now we'll move on and to the next step. Okay, now that we got the loco apart, now it's the time to do some of the repairs. As you remember, that this loco was running really slow, and so I took it all apart, and all the part and pieces are laying out here. Let's take a look. One of the first things I go to is actually the motor. Let's take a look at the motor, the gear on the motor. Let's see, will it come in focus for us here? Let's tighten up, maybe it'll come in focus. Okay, right, yeah. Let's take a look at it and see if we can take a peek at it. Okay, right there. Right there is a crack. What I'm talking about, when I'm saying a crack, what I'm speaking about, if you can see right above the toothpick right there, is a crack. And let's change the angle on the light, maybe that'll help you see it. There it is, you can see the crack right there. Now one of the things, it'll still put up enough friction, the motor itself will put up enough friction to turn the gear, but it will slip as it's doing it, as pressure is applied. But one of the symptoms of this is that you can slide it off just like that. That tells you it's bad. They should take a little strength to get it on and off. All right, we're going to move over and install a new gear on. All right, I got the new gear right there, and I got the old one right there. The first thing you want to do is take a look at it, and you want to count the teeth on it to make sure you got the right gear. Starting at this right there at 12 o'clock, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tooth gear. This is the old one, this is the bad one. It's got a split. Well, there, let's see if I can find the split. Right there it actually is. The right hairline right there above my thumb is a hairline split. So I got its counterpart, brand new one here. All right, and I'm going to install it onto the loco. Okay, so I got the motor up on my wooden block, which is going to help me put this this gear on. When you want to order these gears on eBay, you want to say, hey, I'm looking for a 2mm shaft diameter and whatever size teeth you need. Like this one's an 8 tooth gear. All right, so let's going to try to put this new gear on the loco. Okay, a little slippery here, but we'll get it done. Okay. Now I'm not hitting it very hard, just enough to get it in there. All right, now the gear's applied. Let's move to the next step. Okay, now that I got the gear installed onto the new gear installed onto the motor, let's assemble the motor back together. All right, so we take the motor, put it in right there. Goes right like that. All righty, it sits in there just like that. The worm gear goes in next. It sits in this little area right there. Zoom in a little bit so you can see what that looks like. All right, that goes in like that, just like that. Next gear I'm gonna put in is this one. Goes right there. And then the switch gear goes in right here like that right there. All right, so that's taken care of. Now I'm gonna back out the camera a little bit. Okay, the next parts I have to put in is the activation axle shaft, the arm, activation arm, and then this very, very small little spring that has to go in. Notice one of the arms is longer than the other. Short arm, long arm. I put the short, long. I'll show you what I do with that here in just a minute. So let's do this. Let's take the axle, put in its hole right there, and then take the activation housing and take the arm, slide it inside. You want to make sure it slides inside right there in the back. Okay, it's in there. Then we slide this onto the shaft right there. All right, and now we come up with the very small spring. Oop. And I use these needle nose tweezers to get it in there, because if you try to stick your finger in there, you won't. Your fingers get in the way, and you won't be able to see what your fingers are doing. Goes in this little tiny shaft hole right there. Oh. It's all falling apart here. That's part of the thing with these talking actions. Get it back out. Put the axle back in. Line up the 3 holes. Put it in right there. And let's try attempt it again. I'll give you a close-up of this here in just a second of what I'm actually doing, so you can see. Okay, I got it there. Slide it down a little bit so it's there. All right, it's on there. Let's see now. We're going to take this, pivot it around. It's all sliding away from me as I talk. Okay, clamp it down just like that, and it's down. And the gears look in decent shape in there. They lined up with their holes. Let's go ahead and connect it all back together. All right, before I go any further, I want to make sure that all those gears are lined up. So let's bring in the battery carriage and put it in there, and let's put some, give it some juice and see if it runs. Yep, the gears in there are working. Let's see if I can get down in there tighter for you. You see the gears in there working. And you want to make sure the activation bounces. And it does, it bounces. Alright, so now we got to assemble it to the frame and put it all together. Alright, before you reassemble it, you want to check the axle gear, because these axle gears can split. All you gotta do is put some pressure on it, and it seems to be doing okay. There's a little spin on it, but it catches, but it seems to be okay. So we'll move on to do the assembly. All right, we're gonna start with the frame all the way down at the bottom. We're gonna put in the motor housing group right here. We're gonna put this speaker underneath, just like that, and then you come in and you put the speaker in its little hole right down here. Line that up, and then you bring it, and you want to get the activation housing inside the little fork area right back here, right there. So make sure it's got some play. It does. Now we're going to add the 2 screws that hold the motor down onto the frame. Okay. All right. Before I move on, I always test it to make sure I don't assemble the whole thing, realize I did something wrong, and come back and have to fix it. So I'm just going to check it and make sure it's running. Yep, I got some running. I put some friction against the wheel, and it's pushing against it, so that's really good. All right, I'm going to shut it off. All right, now it comes to the part where I'm going to assemble it. All right. Get this. Next hardest step is to get the cab on top of all this, because this gets in the way, the wires get in the way, and it gets hung up. So that's our next step. Okay, now we're going to load up this cab, and these parts right here, these little tabs right here get caught up on this stuff. And then also, when I'm trying to see this right here, this little ledge right here, all these wires get caught on it. So let's try to get this put on there. All right. All right, now that we got the shell back on, let's test it before we close it completely up and see if it runs. Yep, seems to be doing pretty good. Turn it off. Last thing to do before we put it up on the track is to close off the battery compartment, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's put it up on the track. All right, got the loco on the track, and we're going to give it a run, see how it does. All right, thanks for watching.